Thanks for tuning in to Sin's Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So today we are going to be doing my May reading wrap-up. Happy June to everyone. I was able to read, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 books this month. You remember my goal last month was 13, so darn, I was shy, just one. The first book I finished, which was a carryover from April, is Where Darkness Blooms. If you're looking for a book about feminine rage, I mean, this is the book for you. It follows 4 girls. They live in this town, and they are high schoolers now. They live together because their mothers have gone missing. 2 years ago, their mothers went missing. They have no idea what happened to them. And 2 years ago, like, all of their lives kind of went to shit after that. And they live in this town that's surrounded by a field of sunflowers, and little do they know that the sunflowers require a sacrifice every so often. What is the sacrifice? Women. Women are the sacrifice. Yeah. The story does switch between all 4 of the POVs, and I think they all balance each other out really well, so I ended up liking it more than I thought I would. I went into it kind of blind. It was a book that had been sitting on my TBR for a while, so I kind of forgot what it was about a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, I really did enjoy it, and I liked how the characters balanced each other out. You know, they really played off of each other, and they really had that strong sisterhood relationship that I appreciated. I mean, 2 of them are twins, but for the most part, they all had a sisterhood, and I really did like that. You know, it was pretty much chicks before dicks by the end of the novel. Pardon my language, but it really was that. It's about female relationships, and how women tend to be taken advantage of by men. So if you're looking for that feminine rage book, this is definitely going to be the book for you. And it had a really good supernatural aspect to it as well. After that, I read Dead Girls Walking. So this is perfect for slasher fans. And I love slasher movies. I really do. I'm a slasher girl. I really do think I'd be a final girl. You gotta follow the rules. There are rules to surviving a horror movie. If that doesn't sound familiar to you, then I don't know what else to say about that. But I do love slasher movies, and the book itself takes place at a camp. It's a camp specifically for colored queer girls. And colored queer girls who are slasher fans. That's what the camp is for. Like, they watch slasher movies and they read slasher books. And at this camp, you know, it takes place at one of the characters' temple, the main character. No one knows this, but that used to be her camp. That used to be her home. Her father was a serial killer, and her father sent her back home to be like, oh yeah, I killed your mom. This is where I buried her body. And she's just like, well, fuck, now I have to go find her body. Because her mom went missing, so she's like determined, and her father's in prison, but girls start going missing, bodies start appearing. It's just like, okay, my father's in prison. Is there a copycat? And it's so much more involved than that, and it has a supernatural twist to it, and it was really, really cool and a little creepy. I did want a little bit more from the characterization. I think sometimes they were... Some of them were a little too cliche as far as, like, the mean girl. It was very much a horror movie. Like, I could see this being adapted into a movie perfectly, because it hits all those tropes kind of perfectly. But I just wanted a little bit more from that characterization, so it didn't feel so much like a cliche. After that, The Weavers of Alamaxa. I love this book. If you love, I can't stress this enough, if you love Avatar: The Last Airbender, you're going to love this book. I promise you. It's phenomenal. Just Georgina and Nihal, the way their character development and their whole character arcs have just gone, they're so different from the first book, you know. Georgina in the first book, she was very meek, she was very shy, she was very unsure of herself, and Nahal just didn't know when to pick her battles. Georgina becomes this fierce warrior woman, and Nahal learns to pick her battles and learns to not temper herself, but word herself better. You know, there's a time and place for me to put you in your place, and I'm noting this moment so that I can do that later. But in the meantime, I'm going to play the diplomat. So she grows. They both grow, and I really do like that. And I like how the story has developed, and I like the elemental aspect of it. And I also like the political aspect of the story. It does have a lot of political undertones, and it very much does focus on a suffrage movement in the book. It was very well done, very well executed. I really enjoyed the storytelling, as well as the world building. As far as the duology is concerned, it's a it's a solid ending, and honestly, it was so well done. I was so happy for the publisher to send me a copy of this book. It was such an amazing series. Absolutely love it. After that, for my friend Gina's Kiss and Tell book club, I read A Fate Inked in Blood. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I did like the book. Everyone's like, you don't read romance. No, I don't really particularly like romance books. I don't mind romance in books. I just don't like it when romance kind of takes over the plot. I need more story. I need more story in my books than just the woman fawning over the man. And that's kind of what happens here with Freya. And it was a little annoying, especially because that opening sequence, I mean, she's a fierce, formidable woman. She literally throws an axe into her husband's, back of her husband's head, and that was just like spectacular because he was a dick and totally had it coming. But that was a spectacular moment, and she goes from that to spending a big chunk of the book just fawning over her technical son-in-law, because she's now married to his father in name only. Like, they've done nothing to consummate the marriage, but now she's, you know, fawning over Bjorn, and you're a shield maiden. I was expecting someone a little bit more like Lagatha from Vikings, and it was kind of a disappointment for me. It's like her characterization was up here and it kind of took a dive. And don't get me wrong, she does get back up there by the end, but I need more than just a woman falling over a guy. And also, personal pet peeve of mine, the amount of time she said my sex throbbed for him. I hate when authors use the word sex to describe their loins and genitalia. It's just like, you don't have to use the word. You can just say, I was hot for him, or I was wet for him, or I throbbed for him. Like, there are better things to say than just using the word sex there, and it's just my personal pet peeve. And that's probably why, like, those two things combined, like all her fawning over him, which I think kind of denigrated her characterization a little bit, personal pet peeve, and then my second pet peeve, I think this would have otherwise been a 5-star book for me, but it was a 4-star book, unfortunately. I still liked it. It was engaging, it was fun, it was tropey, but I liked the book. And I am excited to read the sequel. After that, I read The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. I liked it. I like the dual POV. It's very much a historical fiction mystery, which I thought was really interesting. Not what I expected, especially with that supernatural aspect to it, that paranormal, you know, seances, but it's actual seances. It's not like something from Agatha Christie's Halloween Party, right? She does commune with spirits, and some of these spirits are quite vengeful, and they're trying to solve the mystery of who killed the leader of the London Seance Society. So they're retracing his steps, and it's a dual POV, and you have one male POV and one female, and you're just like, what's going on? I did not see that plot twist coming. I wish I could say I did. I did not. Did not see that plot twist coming. So I did like that aspect of the storytelling, that it did catch me off guard for that little bit. Furysong is what I read after that, and oh my god, I love this book so much. I love the Eurelian cycle. I always have trouble saying the name of this series, but Fireborn, Flamefall, Furysong. Those are the books. Read them. They're amazing. A lot of people say it's like Game of Thrones, but for a younger audience. It really, it is in a way. I guess it would be closer to House of Dragon if I had to really equate it, because it's similar to that more so than the actual Game of Thrones series. It's a very political heavy, and these are young, these are young characters. They are in their teens, and they're dragon riders, and they have to deal with like revolutions, and the book series starts off with them surviving a revolution, and now they're creating their own revolution, and there's no fantasy, like there's no magic. It's just their connection to the dragons, and the dragons are the fantasy, and the relationship with their dragons is just like hard. It's just like I loved it so much. And it's action packed, and it goes between each character so fluidly. I mean, that characterization is spot on. Those character dynamics are so well done. It was so fast moving and fast paced. It was unputdownable, and it was unstoppable. It was just moving like that from beginning to end, non-stop. And Annie and Lee, I love their relationship so much, because they just, so much has happened between them, but they still find a way to lift each other up. And I'm just like, the support you guys have for one another is just wholesome and sweet, and I love you guys. So I loved the happily ever after. In case you're wondering, there is a happily ever after. But, the characterization is so well done that you even feel for the side characters, like Power. Whoa! Just whoa! That kind of came out of nowhere, and it was excellent. It was so well done. Highly recommend. After that, Inheritance of Scars, which was a gift from Simon & Schuster. It was an arc. Yo, this book was so good. It follows Astrid, so she has Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease. And she goes back home to Tiveden, and her grandmother's missing. Her grandmother is missing, so she goes into the forest. Everyone says, don't go into the forest. She's like, I'm going to follow my grandmother's footsteps into the forest, and I'm going to find her. I don't care. So she goes, but not before she wakes up Soren, who was in her family cellar, and he's a draugr, aka he's a vampire. So they go together into the forest, and it's full of so many monsters from Norse mythology. It's awesome. And the history, and like the flashbacks, and it flowed so well, and they really are an enemies to lovers romance right here. If you like the trope, it's one of my personal favorites. Enemies to lovers and found family. Like that tension between them, it's just like explosive. I do love their characterization, and I like how Astrid grows. She develops. I love when stories have really good character development. I really do. For me, it's like one of the things I always look for, because when characters kind of stay stagnant, then I don't really care about them. So then if I don't care about the characters, then I stop caring about the story. If I'm invested in the characters, it more than tends to make up for if the story is kind of meh. But here, pacing is excellent. The mythology, the monsters, it's so good. Book isn't out yet, but add it to your to-be-read pile. Inheritance of Scars. So good. And I'm always here for chronic illness representation in literature. After that, I read The Lilies, which was the young adult book club pick for Barnes & Noble. I do host the book club at my local Barnes & Noble. It was, I don't want to say a letdown. I wanted a little bit more from it. It seemed a little too random at times, and the interstitial scenes ended up kind of going nowhere, which by the time I got to the end of the book was a little bit of a disappointment, because I wanted something to happen with them, because for me those were some of the most interesting parts of the story, but nothing happened with them, and that was a little bit of a disappointment. But overall, you know, I did love the LGBTQ rep. If you're looking for something to read for Pride Month, put this on your TBR. It has a lot of LGBTQ rep. It really focuses on these characters and building them up and solving this mystery, because they're caught in a time loop and they can't escape the time loop until they relive some of their worst memories and solve the mystery of what happened to Lillian. So in that aspect, it was really interesting. It was really good. I liked it, but I'd have to give it like a soft 4, really a 3.5, 3.5 out of 5 stars. After that, I read The Lost Apothecary, also by Sarah Benner. This was for my book club, Read Whitson's Workshop. I have to say, I really did love it. It seemed a little too short, though, and I can't decide yet if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It follows a couple days, dual timelines, split timelines. You know, it follows Nella and Eliza, you know, in the past, and then you have Caroline in you know, present day. She's escaping from her marriage because her husband cheated on her. So now she's going on their second honeymoon by herself in England, and I love England, so I would love nothing more than to do that, go back there. And then she finds this vial, and she does, you know, she was a history major in college, and she almost went to Oxford, but she gave up her dreams for her husband. Poor girl. But kind of her fault at the same time. It was well done. I did like the connection between the past and the present, and I liked how Penner developed each of these storylines and the characters. I mean, Eliza and Nella, their friendship, it was so wholesome and sweet. And then Caroline, I really loved how she grew and regained that agency and said, you know what, I'm going to pursue my dreams, whether you support me or not. And if you really did love me, you would support me. But it's like, clearly we're both unhappy with our marriage as it is. So, you know what? I'm going to focus on me, and I think you need to focus on you. So I love that about her. I really do. I felt, I wanted more. I felt like it was too short. I felt like it was very concise. It was very concise. It didn't drag at all. It just moved at the pace it should have. But I think I just wanted it to last longer, I guess you could say. I wanted it to last longer, which is like not a great thing, because it's just like, oh, well, if it had lasted longer, then I probably wouldn't have loved it as much, you know? But overall, I really did enjoy it. After that, I read When the Moon Hatched, and oh my god, this book is so good. I can't stop raving about it at work. I'm just like, oh my god, you need to read it. Of course, dragons. I love me my dragons. I love dragons. A 690-page book. It does not drag. It is moving. Reva's a bitch, and you love it. You will love it. She's a badass assassin, and she takes out the garbage, and she is cool. And then she's the bulk of the story, and then you have the diary entrance by Eluin, and then you have Vea and Khan's point of views. I mean, this is what I love about story authors. You can have multiple POVs, but not everyone needs to be represented equally. As long as their point of view matters and adds to the story, you don't need to have them there 1,000 times. You can have them there 3 or 4 or even 1 time, as long as it adds something to the story and doesn't take away from it. It doesn't seem superfluous. Parker does that phenomenally here. And, oh god, there were some gut-wrenching scenes. And this is very much high fantasy. This is a high fantasy book. And I loved it. It was so well done. After that, I read Diamond City. I liked the book. I didn't love it. My main hiccup with this book is the relationship between Ina and Cole. For a bulk of the story, I was very confused with the relationship. It felt very much like Electra vibes, like she's in love with her father, because I was getting a lot of fatherly vibes just from him and the way the story kind of portrayed him. And then later on you find out he's only 6 years older than her, and you're like, now I see why she has unrequited feelings for him. But for the bulk of it, it felt very weird to me. It felt like very taboo and just like kind of icky, because I didn't really understand the relationship, because I was getting more of a, oh, he's kind of like a father figure to her kind of vibe, and she's kind of in love with him, and it struck me as weird. But once I got to the end, because that's where we finally discovered like he's only like 6 years older than her, you're like, oh, okay, everything else makes sense now. But it was still a little weird. And then you also have the other two male characters who are also attracted to her, and she's attracted to both of them, and no one really acts on it. But it's just like, just pick a guy already. But I did like that she's, you know, a thief. Not a thief, she's an assassin. She's a hitman, basically, as well. And she's kind of badass. But my main hiccup was that relationship between the two of them. It was really just a hinder for me. That was the main hindrance for me, because I wanted, or if it had been clear early on that he wasn't that much older than her, then I would be like, oh, okay, you know, like this is better, like this is fine. But for the bulk of it, it was very icky. Very good plot twist. Some of them I saw coming. I was just like, saw that coming a mile away, just because of how often they kept referencing it. I was just like, all right, I get it. But some of them did catch me off guard. So I will say that was interesting. I did like that. And last but not least, I read Immortal Reign. Now this book is more like Game of Thrones. This one's very much similar to Game of Thrones. It's the 6th book in the Fallen Kingdom series. I really do feel like this series kind of fell under the radar, especially the spin-off. I mean, the spin-off series, they published book 1 and then they never published books 2 or 3, which had titles. Publication was just canceled, which upsets me greatly, because book 1 left off on a cliffhanger. I'm like, seriously, guys? Seriously? At least release them as ebooks or something. What's the name of it? A Book of Spirits and Thieves. I'm kind of still really mad about this. It's an excellent series, and I really do think it fell way under the radar. If you like Game of Thrones, you're definitely going to like this series. It does have a lot of fantasy to it. It does have a lot of political upheaval to it as well. Enemies to lover trope as well. It does have that, God, what's the name of that trope? Chosen One. It has the Chosen One trope, but it's flipped on its head. Lucy is not always a good guy. Let's just say that. But it's, you know, a really interesting series. I did like how the story developed. I like how it concluded as well. And when you consider I read the book back in 2017, and I still remember, like, the previous books, I read them back, book 5 in 2017. I looked it up. I still remembered it. And the author wrote, she did a really good job of kind of recapping the important parts, so that way when I was reading it, I wasn't lost. It came back to me as I was reading it. Because I was worried. I'm like, please don't let me be lost. God, am I going to have to get the rest of the series in an audiobook and reread them all? It's like, I don't have time for that. I already have all of these that I have to read. But luckily, I was able to reread it, because Rhodes did a really good job of taking pivotal moments that happened and integrating them into the story, so it was like a nice refresher throughout. So it was really interesting. I really did like it, and it really was a solid conclusion to what I think is a really good series that really just kind of fell under the radar, and I don't think it got the attention that it should have. But yeah, those are the 12 books I read this last month in May. What am I going to read next month? Oh, well, you're just have to stick around and see. Thanks again for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your book-loving friends. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.